Hi, everybody. My name is Stephen Magwenzi, and I thought it'd be a good thing to go through the book of Proverbs. I know going through the book of Proverbs myself, I've gained a lot of insight into life. And so often we ask ourselves, I wish I had done this, or I wish I had followed the advice that I was given by my parents. It could have been a friend who would have given me some advice, some suggestions on how to live life. And of course, the good thing, well, the bad thing and the good thing about being a young person is that it's quite easy to ignore it because you think, I've got so much time. But in the end, we sort of like reflect backwards and say to ourselves, wow, if only I had. And so at the beginning of the new year, like today is the 1st of January, we're going to be doing a deep dive into the book of Proverbs. And so it's going to be a 31-day journey. And so for about 15 to 25 minutes every night from 7 p.m. here in Perth, Western Australia, I'll just be sharing my personal insights into each chapter of Proverbs. And I really do hope that you will gain something out of it that will give you the insight that you need to be able to live a successful life. I know that most people, I guess, would read lots of biographies, they would read lots of books that have been written by other people so they can get insights. And what a better way to start the year than to get insight from the word of God itself, to get to understand how perhaps one of the most wisest person to have lived, as Solomon was, has given us insight on how we too can live successful lives. And so really, let's dive into really quickly the purpose of the book of Proverbs. And I think that, it says that in Proverbs chapter 1, it says, these are the Proverbs of Solomon, David's son, king of Israel. Now, we know that Solomon was one of the most wisest men at the time that he lived. And people would come, kings and queens would come to hear the insight that he had. He was able to use the wisdom that he had been given by God, because as he knew that he was going to take over the reign of his father David, the one thing he asked God for was wisdom to be able to lead the people. And it was said that because he asked the Lord for wisdom and not for the trappings, I guess, of leading, the acclaim, the possible fame, and the attractions of leadership, he chose wisdom. And because of that, God said, I'm going to add all these other things to your life. And we know that he was probably one of the richest people that ever lived. And so it says here, their purpose, this is the purpose of Proverbs, is to teach people wisdom and discipline, to help them understand the insights of the wise. Their purpose is to teach people to live disciplined and successful lives, and to help them to do what is right, just, and fair. These proverbs will give insight to the simple. Now, the simple here would mean people who are naive, who don't have a lot of experience, knowledge and discernment to the young. Let the wise listen to these proverbs and become even wiser. And so if you think, you know what, this is a waste of time for me, I've got a whole lot of experience already, I'm already wise. All of us have not finished the race, and there are certain things there are certain elements or certain parts of our life that we can still use wisdom. Let those with understanding receive guidance by exploring the meaning in these proverbs and parables, the words of their wise and their riddles. Fear of the Lord is the foundation of true knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline. And when we look at what is the word wisdom, you see, wisdom here is to put instruction into practice. And so failing to do what we know to do is the definition of foolishness. And so when we look at life through God's eyes and from his point of view, and we then live accordingly, then we're going to have success in our lives. So wisdom is putting instruction into practice. The other thing, these proverbs, as we look at them, what they will give us is discernment. They'll teach us discernment, and that will help us separate and make distinct observations from the different parts. So I guess it's their discernment is the ability to look at a situation and clearly see its moving parts. So therefore, a discerning mind has the ability to think critically and to distinguish truth from error and to anticipate the likely consequences of any given choice. Now, case in point, I know that if I continuously drive at 100 160 kilometers, potentially I'm going to have an accident and I could maim myself, and worse off, I could injure other people. Now, I don't have to drive and find out. The good thing about us human beings that separates us from the animals is God has given us this ability to think through things. And so with discernment, we're able to think through the different situations and boom, and then recognize that, nah, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be driving 160 kilometers an hour, because if I do that, then potentially I'm going to hurt somebody. I'm going to hurt myself, but worse off, I'm going to hurt somebody else. And because of that, I've already recognized the consequences. I've thought things through right to their end, and therefore will say, nah, I'm not going to do that. That's a good thing that wisdom gives us as we go through these proverbs. And so divine wisdom, when you look in verse number 6, it says, by exploring the meaning in these proverbs and parables, the words of the wise and their riddles, it's talking about let the wise listen to these proverbs and become even wiser, and let those with guidance receive them. So it'll give our minds a razor sharp edge. We know that when you put razor blades together, and they require friction if they're to stay sharp. So this process of honing in causes sparks and is really pleasant. So it becomes a very, when you start to mull through and think things through, it's not an easy process, but we know that in the end, it's going to lead to something that is beneficial for us. And so like the stone, Proverbs prepares our minds to slice through layers of falsehood to the core of the truth in any matter. So I think that's why, it's important for us to be going through these Proverbs, because we can glean a lot of things that will give us insight in how to live our daily lives. And some of the key scriptures in there that I like is that in verse number 10, it says, my child, if sinners entice you, turn your back on them. They may say, come and join us. Let's hide and kill somebody just for fun. Let's ambush the innocent. Let's swallow them alive like the grave. Let's swallow them whole like those who go down to the pit of death. Think of the great things we'll get. We'll fill our houses with all the stuff that we take. Come throw in your lot with us and we'll share the loot. And what it says, I think, from there is that whilst sin is very enticing, it promises a whole lot that you will enjoy yourself, do this or make this particular decision. You will enjoy perhaps for the moment, but in the end, the fruits of it are very hollow. So the empty promises of sin are so enticing, but in the end, the fruit of it is very hollow. Once you have partaken of it and you've ridden it through right to its conclusion, only death and destruction and mayhem are on the other side of the rainbow. There's no good things that exist at the other side of the rainbow when you decide to go down a path that is not the most ideal path for your life. And I like this verse number 17 says, in fact, there's this chiding that happens, this insistence. It's like a parent, obviously, it's in my child, he's referring to his child. It says, and I know that even when I was growing up, my grandparents, both maternal and paternal grandparents, would ad nauseum. And each time they'd begin to say something, we do that. Oh my goodness, the eye roll. We do know it was the eye roll then, but it's obviously the eye roll. Oh, here we go again. And they'll keep telling you, if you do this, if you do that, if you mess around, you're going to do this and you're going to get somebody into trouble. My grandparents honed that in on me. But I think that as a young person, and I would encourage any parents to continue to be committed, not to necessarily bore your kids to death, but to still be insistent on just walking them through your experiences in life and saying, be mindful of this, because if you don't watch that life is actually a minefield. And so we need all the advice and the suggestions that we can get so that we can navigate our way through things. It says, if a bird sees a trap being set, it knows to stay away. If you see that something, if you live, and the funny part about life, you see, is that we never know that somebody's setting a trap or there's a trap being set for us. But if you are to know that it is a trap, you're not going to go down that path. Whatever that path may be, I'm not going to define what those paths are, but you know when you're going down a path that may seem wrong to you, that, you know what, this in end is going to be a trap for me. What might start off as an innocent thing to do, down the track, all of a sudden, you'll find that the fangs have gone into your back and they're not letting go. Because the one thing that you thought you would have victory over, once it gets a hold of you and it sinks its fangs into you, it ain't letting go. And so those who say, verse 18 says, those people who set an ambush for themselves, they're trying to get themselves killed. So don't trip yourself up. Just make sure that as you learn through life, think through the choices that you're making. And I guess, you know, he says the fear of the Lord is the foundation of true wisdom, but fools despise wisdom and discipline. Because when we know that what we're doing, and especially when you know that the path that I'm going or what I'm doing is the wrong thing, then it's incumbent on me to not then be surprised down the track if I get myself into a whole lot of trouble, because I knew from the jump that making that phone call and talking to that individual, the outcome is not going to be good. Some other key passages that I liked, you know, like back in the days when we were growing up, they would always say an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Now, I wonder, imagine if that were true for our lives. Imagine if that was true. And sometimes we sort of like say, that's rubbish, that'll never happen. It says here, this is wisdom saying, I called you so often, but you wouldn't come. I reached out to you, but you paid no attention. You ignored my advice and rejected the correction I offered. What if an apple a day does keep the doctor away? So I was active, so you ignored my advice and rejected the correction I offered. One of the things we always have to do in life is to take responsibility for things that we have done, and not to want to always blame somebody and put it at somebody's feet that, because this and such happened to me. And of course, many bad things can happen to us, but take responsibility for what you have to take responsibility and allow and free yourself. It says, because you got to understand that when you reject correction, when you ignore advice, whether it's God that is talking to you, whether it's the Bible, the scriptures that are telling you clearly, don't be unequally yoked with somebody who's not a non-believer, and so on and so forth, and you ignore that, or you ignore the advice when your mother or your father tell you that that person that you're going into a relationship with, they are no good. You have to understand that was God telling you that, hey, you better take a pause on that individual. So this scripture tells me that I can be active in doing nothing because I ignored and I rejected. That doesn't mean I didn't do anything. I was still active in ignoring and in doing nothing. So Proverbs 1 just gives us some really good, really good instructions on how to begin to live our lives. And some of the notes I have here, it says, I've written these in my Bible, the path to success is laid out before us, and we need to choose the way of the faithful one. And sadly, sometimes, all of us make mistakes. It says, this is what happens. Wisdom will laugh at us. So I will laugh when you're in trouble. I will mock you when disaster overtakes you, when calamity overtakes you like a storm, when disaster engulfs you like a cyclone. Man, this is real bad. And anguish and distress overwhelm you. Wow. Man. A key thing, and the best way to live your life is to learn from other people. Because being smart is learning from other people and not learning from your own mistakes. So if you learn from your own mistakes, you're not that smart. But if you learn from somebody else's mistakes, boom, you save yourself a whole heap of trouble. And nowadays, people are willing to give you a litany of the mistakes that they've made, so we can learn from a whole different set of people. And then lastly, as we finish this off, this thing that when they cry out for help, I will not answer, though they anxiously search for me. And you know, when it says wisdom laughs at us, it's our thoughts that will go and begin to use the word that I dread a lot. If only I had listened to, if only I had done this. And that begins to eat away at you. So this is when it says, I will laugh at you when you're in trouble. You will begin to eat yourself on the inside. It says, when they cry for help, I will not answer. Though they anxiously search for me, they will not find me. For they hated knowledge and chose not to fear the Lord. They rejected my advice and paid no attention when I corrected them. Therefore, they must eat the bitter fruit of living their own way, choking on their own schemes. And then lastly, in verse 33, it says, but all who listen to me will live in peace, untroubled by fear of harm. So there is a disaster that awaits me if I do not heed correction. And I guess as we bring this to a close, what area of my life am I not willing to heed correction? Is it in my relationships? Is it in my finances? Is it in my retirement? Is it in my business, my health, whether it's spiritual, physical, and mental health? Do I recognize the signs that I'm out of whack, I'm out of balance? There is a disaster that awaits all of us if we do not heed correction. Like if we don't, the normal retirement age is 65. And if I only wait until I'm 60 to start saving for retirement, man, I'm going to be in a whole heap of trouble. Unless, of course, I win the lottery. Well, then I'm good. But generally, if I don't heed correction that says you got to save for a rainy day, boom, it's going to be disaster for me. So I guess as I bring this to a close, what area of your life are you not heeding correction? Relationships, your spouse, your children, your friends, in your finances, thinking about your retirement, thinking about your investments in your business life, the dealings that you have. And I think for business people, one of the key things is knowing who to partner with in business, because that's really going to be this can make or break you in business, the people that you decide to partner with. And most importantly, you can have all the money in the world, you can have all the financial success, but if your health is poor, you're in a whole heap of trouble. It ain't worth it. So health is spiritual health, our mental health, and our physical health. Those are the things that are we heeding the correction that we need to be heeding. So as I wrap this up, I just give you a peace sign. I love to say peace. I don't know why. It just makes me feel good. And tomorrow night, we'll come back again at 7 o'clock, another 15 to 20 minutes, just some insights that I've gained from the book of Proverbs. And it's such a good privilege to be able to look at the word of God and see how we can apply it to our lives. And so wherever you are in the world, I wish you a happy and prosperous 2023. And may your pain this year be champagne. Peace.